This shift editors all got the exact same 50-second talking head footage to work with. But here's the catch. They got only 48 hours to turn it around. Every one of them from the first batch of Indian School of Motion. They had no references, no edit direction, just the raw footage and complete creative freedom. And after 48 hours, I was in complete shock. Some of them instantly grabbed my attention. Some had incredible motion design. And then one of them made me stop and think. That's exactly how the video should have been edited. So in this video, I'm reviewing every single submission to break down exactly what separated the best cuts from the rest. So you can steal it for your own edits today. Alright, let's get into it. First, let's see the raw clip that I gave to the 50 editors inside of our first batch of Indian School of Motion. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha and I am building Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focused school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 557,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore, getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. One thing I want you to know is in the script, I have carefully placed the words, the numbers. Those are visual cues where someone should do motion design. Let's see how many students could actually understand that. Before I show the top 5 submissions, I'm also going to be showing you a couple of other submissions can be runner-up and really give you the magic sauce. How could they improve so that they become the winner? Now here's the judgment criteria. To judge if someone's work was really great or not so good, I had these judgment criteria: typography, contrast, visual consistency, motion design, branding, and overall retention. A lot of people have done a lot of different things specifically in the retention. If we have to classify in retention, people have played with background patterns, abstract elements, and also the highlighting aspect of it. So let's get into it. Now let's start with the first submission that we're gonna roast is by Shubam Kumar. By the way, this is how Indian School of Motion's platform look like. So let's not waste any more time and see his submission. We are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha and I am building Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focused school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 557,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore, getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. Alright, now that was Shubham Kumar, and if I have to give a rating out of 10, it will be probably around 5.5 to 6. Now let's try to see what's really happening here. Now one thing that is really interesting is that the visual effect that this person has used in the first 3 seconds is where he gets a lot of pointers for the retention part, because he made the first 3 seconds very interesting. So let's play. Today we are talking about so you see this transition that he has pulled off is the sort of transition that we did in one of our videos. This is a video that we uploaded 1 month back and it had 120k views. So he got inspired by the hook of this video and he replicated this. Now this is also very important. Whenever you are working as a freelancer for a channel like me, you should also consider what the creator really likes and has already uploaded in the channel. So let's see the first 3 seconds of this video. Motion design is not difficult, but people on the internet... Right, so he tried to replicate that effect, which he pulled off quite fine. Now, one more very important thing is, my YouTube channel branding is more on the red side. You can see my current background, there's red. But Indian School of Motion has blue branding. If you go to the website of Indian School of Motion, you can see that it is completely having this blue, white, and a little bit of a yellow accent. Now, this is very important because whenever you're making videos, you should do a lot of research about the particular brand, if they have a website or any existing content, and sort of try to organize what is their current branding. One thing that this video will lose pointers on is the research for the on branding part. So let's play. Today we are talking about, again, this is a big problem that I see a lot of people have been doing. First is they don't know how to create contrast, right? I am white, the typography is white, and this is also white. Most of the times the quickest hack that people use is the drop shadow. But honestly, if you don't know how to really use drop shadows, it starts to look very cheap. Now, I mean, this looks quite cheap. If you want to craft videos, so one thing I really would give him brownie points is that he really tried to look at our own channel and try to replicate a couple of things. So if you see in our own video also, this was an active part. And have just made it unnecessarily complex. Of course, this is not perfect because it's the first assignment that the students have done and nothing has been uploaded till the first assignment. So this is the first project that the students have done. So I cannot expect them to be perfect day zero, but let's get ahead. So if I just move forward, you can see that the branding part was missing because he confused my branding with Indian School of Motion's branding. Somrat Datta's branding and Indian School of Motion's branding is not the same, FYI. The contrast is fine, but the sort of micro animation that is expected is missing. For example, the person could have staggered, right? The person could have simply staggered the animation that's coming from bottom to top. Now, this is also one of the fundamental principle of motion design called offset. Of course, we have covered all of this inside the program. Now, let's move ahead and let's see what he has done. Now, when I said motion archetype, he misspelled it to motion architect. So this is one thing that a lot of people do a lot of mistake in motion design is they make spelling mistakes, typography mistakes. Trust me, whenever you're trying to do this for big brands and clients, you will get scrutinized if you make spelling mistakes. Now this is not nice. This is also one more thing that you have to understand. What are the certain do's and don'ts for the brands? For example, I never use PNGs. This person has used PNGs. He tried to do that sort of bounce animation here. Now a lot of people have been quite smart. They have exactly used footages from our own launch video. This is a great piece of work, and if you just use great assets, your video naturally becomes really good, right? I'm building Indian School of Motion. This is exactly from our video. India's first motion design focus school. You can already see the problem with the branding consistency. You can already see we have the blue sort of a theme right here, and this person has used red. So this is just a violation and it should not happen. India's And let's see if there are some other problems. Of course, this is also from our own launch video. This is something that a lot of people have done. This sort of animation, this sort of counter animation for when I'm talking about the social media. So this is quite good. Like 50,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 5,57,000. See, this is where things start to look really bad because drop shadows just look really bad. 1,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. Now this is also one thing that I see in people's work very often, and this is a really bad approach of doing things. See, everything that I'm saying out loud, right? Every word of the line that I'm saying out loud does not need to be on the screen. You have to think of what are the most highlighted words, right? If I'm saying the line over 5,57,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. Let's try to see what are the most important words, right? 5,57,000 apps built by AI over a weekend. And even if I have to pick the top two, it's going to be first 5,57,000 apps and built by AI. That's it. You don't need to type out every word because it sort of looks cluttered and unbalanced. Yeah. The product isn't the problem anymore. Getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. Interesting approach. I mean, he tried to sort of visualize when I said the missing piece of the puzzle. I was expecting someone would actually put a puzzle piece, and he did that. Of course, the problem was that he did it from a PNG and he could not crop it out well. You can see some remnant. This should not happen when you are working on premium projects, FYI. You can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects. Again, this is taken from my own video. After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So the relevance factor is also very important. For example, how to think from a blank canvas. Now, I want you to understand a very important concept in motion design called coherence, right? Which is basically, what am I saying and are the visuals relevant to it? Now, I'm saying think from a blank canvas, right? You're just showing an overlay of a Premiere Pro timeline and I'm looking confused. There is absolutely no coherence. So some points has to be redirected on that. Welcome to Indian School of Motion. Again, taken from my own video. Now there's another important lesson is that typically, at least us, we try to not use the same visual again. If you see, this person has used the same visual twice. Now this is something that is in our rule book. We don't do it. This is not a hard rule, but again, we just don't do it. Before we move to the other videos, the thing that slows us down at our animation studio was never the animation. It was showing a client the film before the film exists. Be it the storyboards, the mood frames, a week of back and forth. So I started using this tool called OpenArt Director. And bro, this one's really different. Let me show you. I open Director and type the brief the way I would say it out loud to a client. From there, you just talk. Cut this, change the light, make him older. And here's your 5 minutes of finished film. One generation, nothing stitched. And honestly, the 5-minute thing is what really got me, because every AI tool I've tested dies after 8 seconds. This one held a story for 5 straight minutes. Is it perfect? No, I still cut frames after. But I was directing, not assembling. This is the OpenArt Director panel. Instead of prompting shot by shot like every other AI video tool, I just talk to it like I'm talking to a co-director. I start with just a rough idea, concept, a mood, or even a vibe. There's no script, no shortlist, and nothing fancy. And it takes that and builds it out. A full story, characters, the world, the tone. Then I assign voices to each character and director locks it in with the same face, same voice, same style across every single scene. Now once I'm happy with the story, I hit generate and it renders the whole thing, be it the visuals, the dialogue, the music, all sync together. If I want more control, I switch to the timeline and fine tune it shot by shot, be it swinging, reorder, or just tell it in the chat what to change. Honestly, this isn't prompting, this isn't editing either. This is vibe directing. Don't worry, you don't have to go search for it. First link will be in the description for OpenArt Director Studio. Alright, that was Shubam Kumar. Let's see the next best edit by Kaushik Kumar Hazra. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha Suman and I'm building Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focused school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 557,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore, getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. Now this is really impressive work. Now if I have to rate this out of 10, it will be probably close to 7.5, because he has tried a lot of things. First thing that he got right was the branding. You can clearly see the difference between Shubham's work and Kaushik's work. Even he has done this call out where my subscribers aren't shown, but it was completely different, right? He has not used red. He completely got the branding color, which is blue, white, and he has not used yellow, which is completely fine. There are some people who have even got that right, so no worries about that. Today we are talking about mask. Now I really love this effect because this is quite a trendy effect that he knows is really working out, and he has sort of added this in our own video, which shows that he's aware of what's really working right now in the social media. And he has also got the 3-second attention rule right, which is the first 3 seconds should be visually engaging. So kudos to it. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. Okay, you can start to see the first mistake, which is spelling mistakes. Please do not make spelling mistakes when you're working on professional project. One thing that I noticed is that the music is starting from the 2/3 of the video, not the start, which is a problem because you have to normalize the SFX based on whether you're using a background music or not. For example, in the first part, you can clearly hear that the SFX is getting too much in the face, right? Later on, it's good because it's well balanced with the background music, but in the first part, it's not. So if you're using, definitely normalize them. Second is, these are very old traditional styles of SFX. I think you should start to use tonal sound effect and also SFX from Botanica. Those are really good, and especially if you are getting into SaaS, you need to know that. So let's play it. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. Now let's try to understand a very important concept. If you look the frames by itself look really good. Like this is one static frame if I have to consider. This is the next frame that I have to consider. Like if I was storyboarding this video, it would be like this, right? This is another frame. In storyboard we have frames, right? Scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. But what is the duration? What is the transition between those frames? Now that is where this video felt a little static. If you see the 3D camera or even the composition zoom stays here for a very long time, right? How to even make this more interesting? There are a couple of ways, right? First, either you can sort of zoom in or zoom out. That's the classic method. Second, you can actually tilt the 3D camera. The elements that are playing in the background can sort of move a little bit like a hover parallax effect, right? So there are a lot of ways to fix this. Love that someone actually understood the fact that the reason I said 8 principles, I wanted people to use abstract shapes to do something on those frames. So he used 8 principles. Of course, he completely messed up with the contrast because he tried to play with gradients, and gradients can be very tricky sometimes if you don't know how to play with this. So overall, the contrast is missing, but the direction of thought was completely correct. Principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. I was expecting more because when he said 8 principles, he definitely used deep glow, the 8 circles to showcase that. The next frame is also connecting, right? You need to really master visual with the underlying script that's going, right? What are the most important words? 8 principles, motion archetype, and I need to connect this to somehow. So what I could have done is these are all the 8 balls, right? What I could have done is simply type write motion archetype, and all of these circles could have been like big circles, could have moved in a way that it sort of makes a circular pattern, right? That would have made things very interesting. This looks a little stale, but again, I understand that this is their first assignment without any coaching by me. Whenever we are using the most important word, the motion archetype, do we really need the? Now, this is a very important concept that we taught inside our workshop where we talked about visual taste maxing, which is a mental method of thinking, which is la negativa, which simply means that removing things are easier than adding things up. You have this certain frame, right? And I want to add more visual elements. Removing elements are gonna make things more easier and premium than actually adding them, right? So it's a frame of thought that we sort of aligned for motion design. So what we're gonna do is subtract instead of add. Now let's see what can we improve. Right. Hi, my name is Shradha and this is quite good, but the sound effect is very annoying. And I don't know what is wrong with people. People just don't know how to use like shadows. This is also not a very good work of shadows. Indian School of Motion. This was a very smart transition because I was not expecting someone to transition from my face cam to the next scene using an UI element. So currently what he has done is used a mouse pointer, added the Indian School of Motion logo, and sort of added that click effect that has transitioned to the next scene. Right. School of Motion. Of course, lot of design contrast issues, but his motion is really good. Design is where he's lacking. That is what we are focusing a lot inside the program. So let's move forward. Motion. India's first motion design focus. Cool. Again, you can see the amount of staticness that there is in the frame, right? Cool. With one mission to build India's top 1% of motion designers. There is also one more thing, top 1% of motion designer. I said top 1% of motion designers. Anyway, it's fine. And this was also one more way I was thinking, not to highlight different people. What he has done is use different AI generated PNGs to showcase this. Also, he has used a little bit of our accent color, which is yellow. We don't really use PNGs in our videos if you have ever seen. But anyway, he has tried out a new way. But anyway, kudos for great efforts. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to. This is also very well executed, and this is also very trendy, where there's this sort of like a glass morphic effect and there's like a glowing box that's moving around. Again, he has done his research really well. This is also how we have done a lot in our own past videos. So kudos to the research. One more thing that he has done really well is micro animation. This box is animating from the background. It's coming from the background, but it also has elements inside of it. We call it atomic elements. Those atomic elements can also sometimes be animated, right? This is also a very important concept. He has added a counter animation to it, which is good. Own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. So also one more thing you might not have noticed was very smartly executed. So if you see the base footage, there's a lot of purple distracting colors in the background. That was intentional because I was seeing how can the students perform when the footage itself does not have a very contrasty background. Now, if you see my video right now, if you see even in my setup, there is quite some distinction. I'm wearing white. The background is sort of like a reddish. There's this poster behind me and there's this sort of like a black thing that I'm wearing, and there's like a lot of distinction, right, between me and the background, which is not in the base footage because this is a very challenging scene to work on. But he was quite smart about it. What he did is just rotoscoped me and made the background a little dimmer, and to get rid of all the distracting colors, he added black and white effect. Super smart. I do it a lot of times. why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized. Again, contrast issues, but very well thought out, because I was expecting when I'm talking about building apps with ChatGPT and Claude, someone would have pulled some sort of like a SaaS style UI animation. It's a little too much to expect from the first assignment, but people have done it, so it's great. So crazy. Apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 5 lakh. Now, again, if I have to really nitpick, these are things that you will notice when you have worked as a UI designer. If you have seen the UI, the tick mark would not be this big. The gap between this is not a lot. Typically, it would be like very small. And also, there might have been another way to highlight which model you're using, right? So what you could have done is make the selected box completely white and the model blue. The box could have been in white and the text could have been in blue. These are things you will know if you have been a UX UI designer before, which fortunately I have been. So now let's get back to the next. Over 5,57,000 apps were. This is a very well execution, and this is something I was expecting someone to do. And you can see this clear contrast between what Shubam has done. He has just typed it out the entire line. But if I have to highlight only 2 words, it would be like this: the number, which has more emphasis, and then a couple of more words. The weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore. Getting attention is. And smart. To showcase getting attention, he has sort of like rotoscoped me and added like a no light effect. Very cool, very cool. Getting attention is, and you can be the one to solve. He's very smart that he actually put his own face into the video, and really nice sort of an animation to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think. Again, the work with shadows can be improved a lot. This does not look very good from a blank canvas. Exactly, this is what I was talking about. When I'm talking about blank canvas, it should be coherent with what visually you do on the screen, right? This is a good way. There are some submissions which have done much better. Canvas. So, welcome to Indian School of Motion. That was Kaushik. Now let's see the next submission by Shradha Suman. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shomra Dotto and I am building Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focused school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 5,57,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. Getting attention is, and you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. Alright. So if I have to rate this video, it would be probably like 6. The reason that it's more than Shubham is because I really loved a couple of frames. I did not like everything, but I really loved a couple of the attempt that she has actually tried to be original. Second thing is, she did not sort of use any of our own videos like Shubham did. So kudos for originality and trying really hard. Let's see what is going on really well here. On retention, I will have to cut down some points because the first 3 to 5 seconds is not very gripping. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. At least she tried to roto me out and put the text behind me. The biggest problem in this is she messed up the 60-30-10 rule of design. If you don't know, we have already taught inside the program. You can just Google it what it means. The color is not on brand, right? Yellow is an accent color that we use, not the main color. The second problem is the font pairing. The pairing of this two italicized font and the sans serif font is not really going very well. Those are the 2 bigger problems that is going on in this video. Let's move forward. If you want to craft videos that make founders, this is also like the choice of footage feels very AI, plasticky, sloppy, right? The sort of references that Kaushik had was like really good. Those were like SaaS launch videos. Those had a lot of movement. So by the nature of what you put in the placeholders already made that video look engaging. But again, this is like me simply nitpicking. That make founders stop scrolling. There are 8. Again, this is again a mistake. I loved the overall idea, but the execution was not very well thought out. If I have to transition to a frame where I'm going to simply get inside that card, I have to ensure that the contrast is really working out well. Now, the job with the shadow is decent, but the overall choice of color is not perfect. I have to transition from this frame, right? So I would have come up with something else. Let's say an image or whatever, but not blue. Something that's not very close with the blue that's here. Could have been a simple white. And whenever I click, then is when the transition sort of happens. The color transition happens, right? Just like how Kaushik did. I really loved the fact that she tried this sort of like a line animation, and this was going somewhere. Putting an 8 and this lot of like a circles and elements revolving. I was a little disappointed when it did not last as long as I would have expected. Let's play this. 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi. 8 principles and motion archetype could have been the same sort of animation, right? So sort of like 8 microcircles sort of revolving and then sort of transition. So it could have been like it sort of moves. So the frame could have just moved to the left and you could have just done motion archetype. Something like that. Even if you're doing like motion work, it does not land for enough time for the audience to absorb. This is a very important framework of mind, simply because when we are working on a project for very long, we are doing it frame by frame, right? So we think the duration of this animation is completely fine, but you have to understand that your audience is seeing for the first time. So a big hack, even when you're working professionally, is to take a third person's point of view. You show this exact video to another person and ask, is this perfect? Did you sort of get the hang of the video? A lot of times, especially if you are starting out, people will be extremely clueless what's happening. Let's move forward. You need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi. Again, the font pairing is not really going out really well. Hi. My name is Shradha Suman and I'm building India. So there's this typography inconsistency. The design is fine. You have added fill in the first one. There's a stroke in the second one. But again, there's not like a lot of contrast in between, right? This is a hard project to work with. And this is the reason I gave you people this project. Kudos that you didn't copy like others. You just took our logo, converted it into like a stroke and tried to animate it and tried this sort of like an animation, right? Problem is again, it's not staying for a while, right? I'm building Indian School of Motion. India's first motion design. See, I'm like, I just saw the word motion for a while and it's gone. Motion design focus school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion. Love the fact that you have actually thought about what are the different abstract ways, abstract shapes I can use for this metric, right? Again, top 1% is sort of like an info. Now, top 1% is an infographic. Now, I have intentionally put the word top 1% as a hint so someone would do an infographic animation. Fortunately, Shradha got it. She did the top 1%. It's not the perfect execution, but brownie points for really trying to think how can you be different than the others. If I had to do it, probably what I would have done is I would have not even shown my face. I would have just made a circle and then let's say I have a line, right? This is the pie, top 1%. So it would start with the complete pie and then the camera would zoom into this part, this small slice, and this is how I would show the top 1%, right? Again, kudos for thinking different. Let's move forward. Motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 1. Again, kudos for trying to be different than others. Everyone has done the previous one, but there are certain problems with this approach. So this is again a classic concept of video editing, which is called the eye trace. Whenever I am watching a video, if it is a talking head video, I'm looking at the eye level, right? Let's try to draw a box of the eye level. So I'm looking here, but you're forcing me to sort of look in a very small place that's here. You can see I was looking somewhere here. I have to like look at something very small right here. There are a lot of easy way to fix this. You have sort of used like a 3D camera to showcase this. It could have been simply fixed if you would have animated another frame where you would have zoomed at the subscriber part right here, closer to the center of the frame, right? So if I break this frame into the thirds, you can see my focus before was in this sort of third, and then you're shifting my focus to another third. This is very hard to sort of shift. So I have to go so far away. Again, very important concept in motion graphic. Don't do this. You could have simply fixed this by, instead of not even showing this all of this UI, you could have sort of done like 160k subscribers, right? That would have been much more sense. Or you could have moved the frame on the right, so somewhere like this, and 160k subscribers. That would have also looked much more clean. Again, little off brand because it's not blue. But anyway, I think you have just taken the YouTube UI, so it's completely fine. Over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar company. Interesting approach. Again, you have sort of done it. Sound effect looks a little to the ear. I mean, it feels a little too sharp. There are so many effects you could put to dumb this down. Billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been... There's some glitch. This looks intentional, but this looks really bad, by the way. Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Not the best execution, but you tried. Over 5,57,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem. See, again, like font pairing is missing, but one thing I really liked is the fact that there's a lot of hierarchy between these numbers, right? So the reason I put this big number is I was expecting someone to understand that the number has to be bigger than the next word. And if you see Shubham's work, it was somewhere like this. This is 5,57,000, and apps is getting the same sort of importance as this number. But of course, you have to give the number much more importance than the other one. So this is also a very good approach. Not the best execution, but at least it's the right direction. The product background is blue, so clearly problem with contrast. Product isn't the problem anymore. Getting attention is. This is very well done. I mean, tried this sort of like an eye animation. I was expecting someone would understand that this is also how you can show attention. Okay, there's also one more concept. Two things are fighting for attention, right? One thing is the eye and one thing is this part. Now again we would use the mental concept of la negativa and see if we can subtract this, if we remove this, does this still make sense? Sure, it absolutely does. So we really don't need to do two of things, right? Both this visual and the typography is fighting for my attention, but there's only so many things I can focus on, right? So we really don't need this. And it's sort of like, and the way it is also competing for the same thing, right? The eye looking here and there also means attention. The animation that you did has already justified that line. You don't need to do anything else. But again, really good attempt. And of course, spelling mistakes. Please. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. That was Shradha. Now let's see the submission of Jit Biswas. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha Suman and I am building Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focused school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 557,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore. Getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. Alright, so if I would have to rate this, I would have probably rated it somewhere between 7 and 7.5. Let's say 7.3. Now let's see what's really working here. One of the things that Jit has really nailed, this is also a problem that happens later on, is the retention factor. So it's very retentive sort of editing, sort of like a hype editing that we used to see a lot in 2024 and 2025. Now sometimes I feel it's a little too much. So let's try to see if he did the retention part for the first 3 seconds really well or not. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to Yes, so it's very retentive. You can see how things are moving really quick, really fast. Kudos for original thinking. He wanted to zoom out my footage and then make that as part of the O. But it did not turn out very well because let's see what's happening. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft video, if I had a lot of time, I would have done that. Because whenever I'm saying motion design, right, the transition from a huge frame to a small O would take very long time. Do I have that sort of time in my delivery, in my pacing? Of course not. So I would not go with that transition. It's a very long transition, right? But again, kudos for original thought. As we see this frame, we start to see the problems. The font pairing is not the best. I mean, this is not really going well with this. And purple is also not part of our own brand palette. But don't worry, we have again taught all of this inside our first model itself about color and branding. Now let's see what's happening here. Very retentive editing sort of style. Like, again, you have used, okay. Now there's also one more thing which is very important is the number of typefaces we use. Typically in a project, we should not use more than 2 type of typefaces. And even when we are using one, we should not exceed more than 3 widths, ideally 2 widths, right? So you can see that this is one font, this is another font, and again, if is another font. This is a clear violation. We have taught this again inside of our module, but let's move forward. This is a very well, this was a very good idea. You want to craft videos that make founders? This was very good done. And Kaushik should learn something from Jit is how he used the branding. How did he use the gradient? So what he did was really reduce the luminosity. He was using a very sort of like a dark blue background. But what Kaushik used, let's see what Kaushik was trying to play with a very light themed, which really did not work out well, right? So the simple answer to solve this was use something that is little lower on the luminosity. Let's see Jit. Yeah, this is doing much more better. And you can see just fixing that, the contrast of the video is fixed. right? Let's see what he's doing. Again, very good work. I mean, scroll stopping, that's how he's showing. And I was expecting someone to do this. I'm not telling 3D, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as part of like a blob. One more thing to note is he knew the principle of using offset. So you can see all of these layers are not coming at the same time. The 5, 6, 7, 8, it's not stacking at the same time. It's 5, 6, 7, 8, little staggered, right, in the timeline. So kudos to that. Again, motion archetype spelling is wrong, but again, a lot of people don't know the word archetype. Interesting, because I was expecting someone would do this sort of like an effect, right? Is it the best execution? Probably not, but still, the way people do it is duplicate 2 layers. Already there is one cropped layer me, and stacking one layer where the text has fill, and again duplicating that, putting it in top of my face, but not adding fill, only adding stroke in that. So that's how you get this effect. Again, quite cool. Also, brownie points for noticing that we use this effect a lot in our own videos also. And I'm building Indian School of Motion. India's first motion design. Again, like too fast. I'm building Indian School of Motion. India's first motion design focus school with one mission. So this was a very important line. So it's a very important emphasized line, like Indian School of Motion. So it should have stayed there for a while. The pacing of my Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focus school. Very important words. And you're not giving enough time for my eye to settle into the animation that you did for this. So you need to know when to increase the pacing of your motion work and when to decrease the pacing of your motion work based on the importance of certain words. Motion design focus school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? Interestingly, you tried something with top 1%, although there is not a very clear hierarchy what you were trying to do. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized. I don't particularly like this frame because it's too much of text on my face, and we talk a lot about negative space inside of our program also. I mean, look at the negative space that is left. It's not a lot. Probably not used a lot of the words. Probably done something better with this frame. Thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Again, nice that you sort of got the icon and tried to make it 3D using extrusion. Very good. I was not expecting anyone to do it, but good. Over 5,57,000 apps were built last year by... Sound design is a little irritating. I mean, I've seen everyone's work. No one's sound design is like really good. Some of those have like good sound design, but no one is doing like really great at it. By AI over... Again, look at the lack of contrast between the word AI. You could have simply done it on the right. Over a weekend. The product isn't the problem. Again, PNGs we don't use. This looks very haphazard, clumsy, cluttered. Not the best approach. Not the best execution. The problem anymore, getting attention is... This was going somewhere, right? This was going somewhere that drained down the colors and you only sort of focus on 1 or 2 of the icons. The approach, the thought process was in the correct direction, that I will show a lot of apps and then focus on just a few. But this was not the best execution. I will show you some of the best execution to do this particular line. Or getting attention is... And again, spelling of attention is wrong. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. Good. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. That was Jit. Now let's see the top 2 submissions for this one. Starting with Bhargav. So let's play this. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha Suman and I'm building Indian School of Motion. India's first motion design focus school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 5,57,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore, getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. Welcome to Indian School of Motion. Woo, now that was a really great piece of motion work. Honestly, like if I have to rate this work out of 10, it would be probably 8.5, very close to 9, 8.7, let's say. Very good work. Right, so let's try to dissect what's really working and how can we learn from Bhargav, and let's also see if we can improve something. Today we are talking about... See, First, already two things are working out really well. First is the retention part, where he has just not used my face at all, and this is still working out really well. Now this is like a very sad sort of an approach to do things. Two things that is working out really well is the contrast. The background color that he chose is much more dialed down. That's the reason it's pairing very well with the text in front of it. This is something Kaushik can learn from. The choice of the typeface, brilliant, looking very polished, really well done. And yeah, there are some text animations also in the frame. Talking about mastering motion design. Yeah, this could have been a little better because the sort of match cut did not turn out this well. This really has a nice premium gradient, sort of like a static background, right? Why did you even need to change that, right? Even if you had to do this sort of match cut, right, you should keep one word. So this has two words, right? Motion design. If you had to do motion design, you could have kept one word the same and did the match cut effect on the other word. To craft videos that this is very smart. He deliberately picked inspirations which are very well done. So he has a good taste, and probably he is into like SaaS launch videos. By the way, we also do a lot of SaaS launch videos like this. We have worked with 6 YC startups and we have also given them great engagements, right? So if you want us to make breakdowns of those videos, let us know in the comment section down below. Comment SaaS and I will definitely come up with a series like that, because I don't talk about our own client projects a lot on our channel, and I think we should talk about it even more. Now let's get back. He picked references which are deliberately like dark themed, not light themed. If he would have picked light themed ones, it would have been too much in the eye. So really good attention to details. So let's sort of move forward. This was very smart. Just cutting in the action, putting that focus in that word, stop scrolling. Stop scrolling. Very good execution. There are 8 principles. Finally, someone understood the assignment of how to show the 8 principles and the motion archetype. Good. This is exactly what I was expecting someone to understand. Principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Good. So this is a very good approach to solve the problem where, okay, I'm saying the word 8 and I'm saying the word motion archetype. I need to connect these two, but those are very far, right? I'm just making the pacing a little bit slower and the animation a little drastic. So you can see, you need to know. I call this, it's just a swipe from left to right, but it is happening over time and it looks quite good. The motion archetype. Perfect. Archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha Suman and I'm building Indian School of Motion. Good. India's first motion design focus school with... So I have this line, India's first motion design focus school. Deliberately I put like 6 words and I have to pick the most important words. First motion design school. That's it. You don't need to say India. You don't need to say focused. You can just focus on first. 1ST design school. Motion design school. Or even just motion design would work. It's more like I'm already saying that line and you need to do things that visually complement the line I'm saying, not compete. This is very well executed and this is exactly I was wishing someone would do. How do I visually show 1%? What is 1%? Right? 1% is what 99% is not. So probably I will just show 100 people and I will just focus on that one. Simple. That's how you start to think in the right direction. That's what he has done. This is very well execution. He showed a lot of people. Everyone's the same. There's no differentiation. And he focused on the one who's in the center by making only that highlight. So reducing the brightness of everyone else and also adding exaggeration, another principle of motion, by adding subtle accent color. He understood the 60-30-10 principle of design before I even taught him. Great execution. Top 1% of motion design. Motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. Great. Again, a lot of people have done just simply billion-dollar, right? But he understood the assignment really well. The billion-dollar is a word that you have to emphasize. So this is on a much larger scale compared to the other elements, right? So if you just start writing out the boxes, you can clearly see what he's doing, right? Great. And also attention to detail. It is not just a white text, it's a gradient, right? Starts with pure white and ends with gray. He has worked with shadows really well because there barely is any, right? Subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 557,000 apps were built last year by AI over a week. Good. So this is what I was talking about, right? This number is so much more important than everything that is said later on. So this has to have higher hierarchy. A lot of people have, again, put the number in the same hierarchy as the word. But you have to create a massive contrast using one of the tools of contrast called scale. By AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore. Oh. Attention is. So I was expecting someone should do this sort of like a spotlight effect where the light sort of sweeps between this to show attention, right? Quite an abstract concept, but very well execution. This shows that he knows his stuff really well. Good. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. Welcome to Indian School of Motion. Great, yaar. Great work, Bhargav. Now let's see our final contestant, which is Aryan Patil. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. If you want to craft videos that make founders stop scrolling, there are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. Hi, my name is Shradha Suman and I am building Indian School of Motion, India's first motion design focused school with one mission: to build India's top 1% of motion designers. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers and worked with billion-dollar companies. But why now? Because building apps have been completely commoditized thanks to ChatGPT and Claude. Over 557,000 apps were built last year by AI over a weekend. The product isn't the problem anymore. Getting attention is. And you can be the one to solve it. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to think from a blank canvas. So, welcome to Indian School of Motion. Whoa, now that was something. This is great work. This is great. I think Aryan's work has checked most of the boxes that I was expecting. There are certain problems still, of course. I mean, he's just started I'm just wondering if this is his work without me teaching him anything. Where would he be really after I teach him everything? Crazy. If I have to rate, this would be like 9.2, 9.3. So let's see what's really working out well. And so let's dissect his work and see what we can learn from it. Today we are talking about mastering motion design. So very well done. I mean, if you see these subtleties, the attention to details is really well. I mean, if you have seen some of the workshops that I've done, I've talked about the magnetic type effect and he has applied that brilliantly, right? So there are 2 different things happening here. First, he did the magnetic type effect. You can see today we are talking about that choice of typeface is perfect. The effect is coming out really well. Definitely what he did is rotoed it and sort of drained the lightness. So even with a white text, it is still looking quite good. Then he has added some sort of like a texture effect on top of it, little bit like a halftone pattern going out really well. Now all of this makes one stack, but he has went a step further so that the engagement is really good. This sort of like a grid effect. So my video is inside of a grid, right? And he has perfectly followed the ISOM branding. You can see the subtle blue shape that he has added on the corners, working really well. And then he has also gone further to add like an RGB spectrum split effect. Now one thing he did not quite get well is that yellow is our accent color, not primary, not secondary color. So I would have gone with probably white here. But anyway, good pieces of work. He has really put in the efforts to get and download a lot of our own YouTube and Instagram videos and run it parallelly on the sides, right? And again, you can see there are a lot of things that stack, right? So this is a zoom in effect and the camera is landing somewhere here. The direction of motion that each of the tile is happening is in the opposite direction. So it also makes it more engaging in that perspective. Branding is on point. The branding is on point. And the font pairing is also absolutely on point. There are certain problems. Like if I really have to nitpick, you don't need to say every word, right? Again, I've already talked about this in some of the videos, right? If you want to craft videos that makes founders stop scrolling, and again, like you need to understand the syllables, right? Founders stop scrolling has to be together. What you've done is, if you want to craft videos that make founders, that's kind of wrong. That's like logically it won't flow very well because you need to make a transition that's quite fast and abrupt, right? Again, I'm just nitpicking. I would have probably kept make founders stop scrolling in the same scene. These are 2 different scenes, right? And again, whatever you're doing is going out really well. Again, very well done with the contrast because using a dark gradient is the hack. Second thing is, a lot of things are happening, right? Like this is good, but do we, again, if I use the framework La Negativa, do we really need this? Right? Attention is scarce is still fine. Lost in like too much, right? Even this is like quite fine, but do we really need this? Probably not. But I know why you have done it. You saw that stop and scrolling are not of the same length. So to make sort of like a visual balance, you added something. So let me just undo this. And this would happen a lot of times. And I have a next word, which is little longer. So what he did was add another visual element to sort of balance it out. Very good direction, probably not the best execution. Right. So now this is probably the best execution for this part, motion archetype, right? There are 8 principles you need to know. I call this the motion archetype. lot of abstract ideas working in congruence to make it look very beautiful, right? Now, if I have to really nitpick, you can see not all the letters are caps, which is not really looking well. Second thing is I would have probably added either blur or mosaic effect so that there is an element of surprise, a tease. Okay, there are 8 things. I don't really know what those are. I really want to know. The way you clubbed all of this 8 into one, perfect. Hi, my name is Shradha Suman and good. Probably I would have done my name all caps. Indian School of Motion. Great. India's first motion design for. I've seen this somewhere. I don't recall where. I don't know if you actually build this from scratch or not. But so this is a very well balanced frame. So inside of our program, there is something called balance. And if I have to talk about the balance that is happening right here is the asymmetrical balance, right? So on the right, we are balancing typography, and on the left we are balancing with shape. Very well execution, and it's very on brand mission to build. So this is a very cool effect. Like even Bhargav did this. What you do is you sort of add a camera movement in one direction, can be left, right, bottom or top. Sort of land in the same animation, right? See, it's the same exact frame, but your focus is now on some other word, right? One mission. And mission to build India's. This is great. I was expecting someone to do this sort of a thing. Like there are multiple bubbles and each of those gets highlighted as we say the top 1%. India's top 1% of motion. To really nitpick, probably I can also do like a 1% here instead of writing out the entire line. Why me? I've scaled my own YouTube channel to over 150,000 subscribers. Good attempt. This is sort of like a bento grid that he tried to make, but really don't like the execution of this part. And also like some design problems because there's not enough space. I mean, if you see the negative space, see then this part, it's not a lot of negative space. And of course, these are things you would understand really well if you have been a UI designer, designed interface from scratch, which is also one of the things you need to master if you are getting into SaaS launch videos. But why now? Now, this is so like, but why now? I mean, I love this frame. For some reason, it's so simple, but still so elegant. Like used all the colors, the blue, the white, the yellow, right? And probably even I would have not thought about doing it this way. A lot of efforts into thinking how to transition between scenes, and I think this was one of the best way of showcasing using ChatGPT and Claude. First things were differentiated, so he went another step to research what I mean by commoditization. The opposite of commoditized is differentiated. Very well, attention to details. Kudos to your research, right? From just ChatGPT and Claude, multiple lines are coming out and there are like a plethora of apps, right? Very good. Sound effect, little bit too much I feel. Yeah, so cool. Like using a calendar effect. Think about this. Like weekend is the last 2 days of a week. What is a week? 7 days. 7 days. 7 days of a month. So we can use a calendar in this, right? Over a weekend. This is good. This is something you should really try to dissect the thought process. Again, the product isn't the problem. Again, he tried the animation that we did in one of our videos. Good. Problem anymore. Getting attention is. Again, same effect as Bhargav. Only thing he missed is that he used a PNG. Not a big problem, but I would probably not use a PNG because that's part of our do not in our own branding. And you can be the one to solve it. Nice. We are not just teaching After Effects, but how to create transition. Like adding context matters so much when you're doing motion design. Like this is really good. How to think from a blank canvas. So welcome to Indian School of Motion. Now, of course, Aryan really deserves the first place. So congratulations, Aryan. Your work was the best.
I know, you have been waiting for this exact moment. See, last time we got over 3,000 applications, but we took only 50. And because of your comments, we are going to start batch 2 very soon. So subscribe to Indian School of Motion's YouTube and Instagram page right here. And if you're watching this thinking you want to build a career in motion design, watch this video next.